Hello everyone. Is everyone here? Can everyone hear me? Sorry. Okay, hello everyone. Can all of you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we are gonna start immunology today, right? If some pathology is left, we are gonna cover it later, right? We could do it anytime, right? So today we are gonna start immunology, right? Okay. Or do you guys want to start another system first? Like you can tell me if you want another system, we could do that first.
I think, sir, immunology is good because many of its like mediators, cytokines, and things are related to the pulmonary section and as well
Okay.
as the
Yes,
brain.
agreed.
Yeah. Okay. Just give me 1 second. Okay. Okay. So we are gonna start from the. Wait a second. So okay. So let's start here. Okay. So the first most important thing is okay. So we're not gonna. Uh, okay. 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 So let's start from hypersensitivity reactions first, right? So we are gonna do it in like not like in the order of first, right? But first of all, because if we just I explain the things to you right now, right, and we don't do like other things, it's gonna be different. So what are we gonna do is that we are gonna start in a different order, and the first thing that we are gonna do is the hypersensitivity reactions. Okay, so basically, hypersensitivity reactions are very important, right? They are very, 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 very high, right? So you are definitely gonna get questions in you or in maze, right? Regarding these things, right? So we have four types of hypersensitivity reactions. Type 1, type 2, type 3, type 4. Okay. So basically four types of hypersensitivity reactions, right? So let's start from type 1. Type 1 is the most important and it's the most basic. Okay. So what is type 1 hypersensitivity reaction? So basically type 1 hypersensitivity reactions mean, right? Basically, let's start from one thing. Right? Do you guys know what is atopy? Anyone like what's atopy? So atopy basically atopy mean if so basically atopy is the phenomenon that you are very sensitive to something, right? Like sometimes what happens is that a normal human body is very sensitive to something. Right? Oh, okay. Wait, any question? Yes, yeah. The ability to react differently. Okay. So yeah. So basically this is atopy, right? So atopy basically means that right you're gonna have a different way of reacting to something, right? So normally, first of all, for type 1 hypersensitivity reactions to occur, we should have atopy to something, right? So how can we have atopy, right? So basically for atopy so first of all let's start okay. So so first of all, you should be a topic to something, right? It's not gonna happen in everyone, right? So some people are allergic to peanuts, and some people are allergic to other stuff, right? So it depends what things are you allergic to. That matters the most. Okay. So and some people and there are some things to which everyone is allergic. So first of all, what is gonna happen is that what is an antigen, right? So first of all, let's go over the concept of antigen, right? So antigen basically is a substance which is foreign to the body, right? Keep this thing in mind, right? Anything that is foreign to our body is known as an antigen. Okay, guys? Any single thing that is foreign to the body is known as an antigen, right? So basically, when an antigen comes into our body, right? What is going to happen is that if you are atopic to that substance, right? If you are atopic to that substance, IgE is going to be produced against that substance. Okay, this is a very important one for you guys. Please keep it in mind, right? So
Hello, Dr. Want. Your voice is not clear.
okay. Wait a second. My hands feel really bad. Don't know what happened. Okay. Okay. Is it better now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So basically, what happens is that sometimes you are atopic to some substances, right? So basically, whenever you are atopic to some substances, Ig is gonna be produced, right? Ig is gonna be produced against that substances, and Ig is gonna be ready in the body, and it's gonna be ready to attack those things, right? This is what atopic means, right? So, for example, if you're atopic to something, Ig is present there. Ig is gonna be ready to attack that molecule, and when that molecule comes in, Ig, it's gonna go to bind. Ig is gonna go and bind to that molecule. This is the first most important thing, right? This is known as antigen cross linking, right? And where is the Ig gonna present? Ig is gonna present. So this is why I like physiology, immunology, and these stuffs, right? This is gonna explain asthma in such a better way than like normal things, right? So what is gonna happen is that this IgE gonna be present on mast cells, right? And on the top of mast cells, we are gonna have IgE, right? So this is mast cell, right? Or on the top of mast cells, we are having IgE, right? So this is the first thing, right? Mast cells, and on the top of mast cells you are having IgE, right? So allergen is going to come here, allergen is going to bind to the specific IgE that is going to be present. As soon as this reaction is going to occur, right, IgE is just like a lock, right? What is IgE? IgE is just a lock that binds to mast cells, and when IgE binds to the lock, right, so whenever you, so for example, uh so just think of IgE. So let's think IG, a mast cell is a person, right? And you are the mast cell, right? And you do not like a person, right? You really, really, really hate a person, right? You don't want somebody in your home, right? So you have a lot of anger against that person, but you do not need that person. This anger against someone is known as the atopy, right? This anger against someone is known as the atopy, right? And now what happens is that your mother or someone in your home, your brother, your sister, um, brings that person to your home, right? So that person is now in your home, right? And now this person or antigen comes to your home, right? And then you're gonna get angry all of a sudden, right? This is a whole process of type 1 hypersensitivity reaction, right? So antigen is their enemy, right? It's gonna bind to IgE. So IgE is gonna be your friend, your brother, or your mother. They're gonna bring up the person to home, and when the person is gonna come to home, you're gonna put out lash out all the anger on that person, right? So mast cells uh, have different molecules, right? They have different molecules, and the most important molecule is histamine, right? I have told you about histamine blockers, right? But then again, like in pharmacology, I could not just tell like they are blocking histamine. What does that mean? But here, it's I can tell you easily, right? What are histamines? So histamine is a molecule that are going to be present in the mast cells, right? And what are histamines gonna do? Histamines are gonna act on the blood vessels, right? And they're gonna vasodilate the blood vessels. Okay, histamine is gonna act on the blood. Is it muffled still?
No, it's clear
Okay,
now.
okay.
No, it's clear.
Okay. So histamine, yeah. Okay. So no, allergen is gonna bind to Ig. Ig is gonna bind to allergen. It's the same thing, right? There's not a difference, right? There is a cross linking, right? So if I say to you that I met you, I shook your hand, right? Does it mean that you did not shake my hand? No. So it works in both ways, right? So they are gonna bind each other. Okay. So they bind each other. Histamine is gonna be released. What does histamine do? You need to know the functions of these molecules. I interleukin 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 17, histamine, all the amines, right? Tumor necrosis factor, all of these things are very important. Okay, so this is the first thing. Now, the second thing that is important is that histamine is going to bind, it's going to vasodilate the vessels. When the vessels are going to be vasodilated, there's going to be secretions of different substances as well. You're going to get all of these things, right? All of these things are going to happen when the patient is, when the histamine is going to be secreted. Okay, okay. So that's it, right? Uh, so this is how these reactions occur. Okay, just give me 1 second. Okay. Now, next thing is that after that, so this is the first thing, it's gonna happen immediately, right? This is gonna happen immediately. After this, the next step is gonna be the late step, right? So after the histamine is gonna be released, then eosinophils are gonna come there, right? The body is gonna say to eosinophils, please come here, right? And when the eosinophils are gonna come there, right, they are gonna release chemokines, right? Chemokines are gonna be released, right? And then other mediators from the mast cells are gonna come, and these mediators are gonna cause more damage. Okay. So basically, this is what happens. Okay. Any questions in now? Right? So two stages, stage one, stage two, right? So what is the biggest example of this thing, right? The biggest example of this thing is asthma, right? Asthma is the biggest example of this thing. So this thing most commonly happens in asthma, right? So now let's, okay, okay. So this is the biggest thing. It's gonna happen in asthma. Okay. So again, asthma has two phases, right? One stage is the immediate stage and the other stage is the late stage, right? So first of all, whenever an allergen comes, if you are allergic to pets, if you are allergic to pollens, right, what is going to happen is that this asthma is going to be activated, right? You're going to have immediate release of molecules, right? In order to counter the immediate release, what do? You secrete albuterol, right? Albuterol is going to cause vasodilation of the bronchioles, right? So if the bronchioles constrict, so histamine constricts the bronchioles, right? We're gonna vasodilate the bronchioles. Okay, when the bronchioles are gonna be vasodilated, right? Dilated, right? The problem is gonna get solved. Okay, is that clear? Now, the other thing that is important here is the fact that there is gonna be a late stage of this thing as well, and late stage is due to inflammatory molecules, right? It's due to white blood cells, right? And what is the thing that blocks white blood cells? Anyone? What is the most important thing that can easily block white blood cell functions?
Steroids.
Yes. Okay. Okay, guys, I'm gonna write it as well. Okay. Okay. So it's gonna be the steroids, right? Okay. Which cells produce chemokines? White blood cells produce chemokines. Okay. White blood cells produce chemokines. Okay. So white blood cells are gonna produce the chemokines. Mast cells are gonna produce the chemokines as well. Okay. So now steroids are gonna block this thing, right? So, but remember, so now they could ask you this question. They could ask you the fact. This is very important. That are steroids important in the first stage of this problem or in the second stage of asthma, right? So, like if a patient is having asthma, if you give them steroids immediately, right? Oh, okay, okay. I think I can do this thing, right? Uh, I can do this thing. Okay. So, okay. So now, so the question is, are steroids important in the early stages of asthma or the late stages of asthma? Anyone?
It's in the early
Late
stage
stage.
of
Late stage.
asthma.
Yeah. No, no. Okay.
Late stage.
Okay. So why are they not effective in the early stage of asthma? Right? Because in
Because
early stages of
already
asthma,
happened. Someone is
yes,
atopic.
yes. Yeah. So you are gonna need something in early stages of asthma to attack those cells, right? And steroids don't attack the histamine and those things, right? So steroids are useless in early stages of asthma. We give steroids in the late stages of asthma. Okay, is that clear? Right? So like they are gonna prevent the late stages of asthma, and this is more important, right? Because early asthma is not as dangerous as late asthma, right? When the inflammatory cells come, when those things come, asthma is gonna cause a lot more damage than the early asthma. This is the first thing that is most important, right? Now, okay. So, guys, the reason I'm not writing right now is that I'm making something for me as well. Right? I'm making something to eat, right? I just had a 16-hour shift, right? But I want to teach you guys as well, right? So, and I have to go after 5 hours again, right? So I only have 5 hours, so I have to eat in these 5 hours, and I have to sleep as well. So I have to do multitasking. Okay. So, but I'm gonna try to write. I'm just done cooking. Okay. So now uh, so the steroids are gonna be useful in the late stage of this asthma, right? Now, do you guys remember I told you about IgE monoclonal antibodies? Does anyone remember those antibodies? Yes or no? Like we did that 2 days ago.
Yeah,
Lizumab.
yes, you just mentioned them.
Mechanism.
Omalizumab,
Yeah, so
omalizumab.
that was omalizumab, right?
Mhm.
So what does omalizumab do? So omalizumab is gonna go on this IgE receptor, and it's gonna bind to this IgE receptor, right? So when it's gonna bind to this IgE receptor, what is gonna happen? Anyone?
Antigen is not
It's
gonna
going
attach to.
to it's going to stop the
Now the
forming of
allergen
B
can
cells.
now the allergen cannot bind here, right? Now the allergen cannot bind here, right? So this is how omalizumab works, right? Now we have some other antibodies as well, right? I did not tell you about the other drugs the other day, right? I told you let's skip those drugs for now, right? If you remember, right, there were other drugs and they block interleukin 4, they block interleukin 5, right? So why are those drugs important? What are interleukins? What is the other name of interleukins? Anyone?
So also the chemokines between the leukocytes.
Yes, so they
These
are
are
the
the
chemokines,
Yes.
right? So what are the other drugs gonna block? The early asthma or the late asthma?
Early as
No,
The
late
asthma
asthma.
cause
Late
late
asthma. Late
WD.
asthma.
Yeah, so they are
Late.
going to block the
To
late asthma
late asthma,
because in
yeah.
late asthma the chemokines are going to come. Okay, so in late asthma the chemokines come, right, and they are going to block the late asthma this way. Okay, is that clear, guys? Any questions about this? Yeah, like please be sure, right? These are important topics. If you have any questions, you can ask me right now. Okay, so they are gonna block the late asthma, right? So I'm trying to explain you the pathology and the other things as well, right? Because we should do that as well. Okay, so they're gonna block the late asthma, right? Now we have another thing which is known as the anaphylaxis, right? Any idea what is anaphylaxis?
allergic reaction.
Yeah, so this is allergic reaction, right? And in
Severe form of
anaphylaxis, okay,
life-threatening allergic reaction, I think.
yeah, so it's life-threatening allergic reaction. In again, in anaphylaxis, two things are gonna happen: immediate phase and the late phase, right? So histamines basically cause action on the blood vessels, right? They're gonna cause the blood actions of blood vessel, and they're gonna vasodilate the blood vessels everywhere. Any idea about any drug which vasoconstricts the blood vessel throughout the body? Any idea?
epinephrine.
Yeah. So
Epinephrine.
epinephrine, right? So if there is gonna be body-wide vasodilation, what drug can we give to the patient?
epinephrine.
Yeah. So we can give the patient epi, right? So we give the patient epi, right, and the patient is gonna improve, right? Any questions about type 1, right, guys? So these seem very simple, right? But the question in U world and NBM is regarding these are complex, right? Because okay, so let me tell you one important fact, right?
Sorry,
The
you mentioned
most
that epinephrine blocks something. I didn't get it.
what did you say?
Epinephrine blocks what?
Yeah, so epinephrine are gonna act on the alpha receptors, right? Epinephrine acts on the alpha, and right when epinephrine is gonna act on the alpha receptors. So what does alpha? What type of receptors that the blood vessel have?
Alpha 1.
Beta.
Yeah, so alpha 1 and beta receptors, right? So when epinephrine acts on the alpha receptors, it's gonna cause vasoconstriction, right? The blood vessels have histamine receptors as well. Histamine receptors cause vasodilation. Okay, so these are the small things, right? Now let me tell you one more thing about USMLE, right? If a topic is easy, the questions in exam regarding those topics are gonna be hard, right? And if the topic is hard, the questions are gonna be very easy. Okay, since asthma is a very easy topic, COPD is a very easy topic, right? Type 1 hypersensitivity is an easy topic. Type 2 hypersensitivity is an easy topic. The questions are going to be complex on these things, right? This is how they try to do it, right? They try to make difficult questions on the easy topics. Okay. Now let's move to type 2. So what is type 2? Type 2 is very simple. In type 2, right? Antibodies are gonna bind to different stuff in the body, right? And they are gonna destroy that thing. Very simple, right? Antibodies are going to bind to different things and they are going to destroy them. As easy as that, right? So first of all, they can bind to cells, right? So antibody, how does antibodies destroy things? This is important, right? Please keep this in mind, right? So antibodies can destroy things in three ways. First of all, if antibodies, so antibodies attached to something, right? When antibodies attached to something, this thing is known as opsonization. Okay. Do you guys know about opsonization?
Yes.
Yeah. So opsonization means if antibodies bind to something, they are marked, right? And then other cells of the immune system are gonna come and they're gonna destroy it, right? Now, when does this thing happen? This thing happens in case of immune thrombocytopenia, right? Okay, let's just leave it for a second. Let's complete first. Okay. The second thing is that they can bind to cell surfaces and they can activate complement system, right? We're gonna do complement system as well in immunology, right? So now for just now, just remember antibodies bind to something and they activate the complement system. And complement system destroys a lot of things, right? Third way is that antibodies bind to something, right? And when antibodies bind to something, other things cannot be bound to those things. Okay. So the third one is the process that we use in omalizumab, right? So omalizumabs are basically monoclonal antibodies. So this is how monoclonal antibodies came into being. Okay, this is how monoclonal antibodies came into being. Right. So what happened was basically monoclonal antibodies went and they got bind to so monoclonal antibodies went and they bind to certain things. When they bind to certain things, you are gonna see, right, that no other thing can bind to them. Okay, so I think we have covered myasthenia gravis. This is the thing that happens in myasthenia gravis, right? So in myasthenia gravis, antibodies are gonna, yeah. So the last part of the complement system is that sometimes antibody goes to an area and antibody binds to a receptor, right? So for example, let me tell you an example. This is a very easy example. One, this is muscle, right? This is the nerve, right? So from nerve, acetylcholine is secreted and it binds to the acetylcholine receptor. Is that clear till now? If yes, then I'm gonna move forward about it. Is that clear? Okay. Now we have a disease which is known as myasthenia gravis, right? So in myasthenia gravis, what is gonna happen is that antibodies are gonna come and it's gonna bind on this acetylcholine receptor. When it's gonna bind on the acetylcholine receptor, it's not gonna activate the receptor. It's just gonna cause it to not work, right? Now, if now acetylcholine gets secreted, is anything gonna happen? No, no, exactly. But this is what happened in movies as well, right? You're gonna see if the evil guys or if someone wants to do a plan, right? If someone wants to do a plan, right? What is gonna happen is that they're gonna get some people and those people are gonna if you want us if they want to steal something, right, what will they do is that they're gonna get some people and they're gonna ask those people to talk to the police or distract the police, right? So these people are known as the antibodies. They're gonna act as a decoy and they're gonna bind there, right? And then the evil persons are gonna do their things, right? So this is what happened in myasthenia gravis, right? And now sometimes these antibodies can activate the receptors as well, right? These antibodies can activate the receptors as well, right? So again, let's take the example of the bad guys and the police, right? So it happens in wars, right? So what happens in war is that like people send decoy drones, right? Countries send decoy drones that are very inexpensive, right? For example, this is a war tactic. Countries send $10,000 drones, right? And those drones go, and then those drones, the enemy nation thinks that these drones are very expensive, right? And what happens is that they spend like a $1 million missile on that drone to kill it. So the host country is losing a lot of things, right? So the same thing is going to happen in Graves' disease, right? Antibodies come, antibodies bind to the thyroid gland, right? Thyroid gland is going to produce a lot of hormones right now, right? It's not going to think if it's real or not, right? This is the second way, okay? Now, is that clear, guys? Now, please keep these examples in your mind. It's very important, right? Now we have another thing which is known as the rheumatic fever. What is rheumatic fever? Anyone, guys? We have discussed it.
When the heart valves are affected by certain bugs,
Okay, so how?
we get
Okay, so let me
like
tell
those,
you. Okay,
they affect the valves.
Antibodies
okay.
cause
Immunoglobuline
reaction.
M
Antibodies
against
against
our
M
own hemoglobin
proteins
G.
are formed.
Hmm?
Antibodies against the M proteins are formed
Yeah.
because of the
They
molecular
must react.
mimicry.
So first of all, you have a streptococcus infection, right? You have a sore throat, right? You have a sore throat. And after the sore throat, what is going to happen is that you're going to form antibodies, right? These antibodies are not going to activate in the streptococcus, right? So basically, the structure of streptococcus and the structure of heart M protein is very similar. So the structure of heart proteins and streptococcus are very similar, right? So the body forms antibodies against streptococcus, but they're not going to act against the heart muscles, right? And they're going to damage the heart muscles. This is known as rheumatic fever, right? Is that clear, guys? So there wasn't, yeah, yeah. So this is what happens, right? So basically, antibodies come and they affect and they destroy something in the body. This happens in rheumatic fever. Same thing happens in Goodpasture syndrome as well, right? In Goodpasture syndrome, you make antibodies against basement membrane, right? And these basement membrane is present in the lungs as well as the kidneys, right? And when this happens, what is going to happen is that you are going to get uh, hematuria because the kidneys are going to be damaged, and you're going to get hemoptysis, that is blood in the lungs as well. So these are the two things that you're going to have, right? Yeah, this is RPG and rapidly progressive glomerulonephritis, right? Hmm. Now, did Dr. Ahmed cover nephritic and nephrotic syndromes in detail?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So basically that was good faster, right? But guys, see this thing, right? See this thing. There are two parts of USMLEs. One is the systems, the other is the general part, right? Okay. So one is the systems, other is the general part. The systems are very important, right? Without the systems, you cannot do anything. But once you complete all of the systems, right, then the general part becomes extremely important. Why? Because they're gonna give you a systematic disease and they're gonna ask you a general thing out of it. This is how they function, right? They're gonna give you a systematic disease and then they're gonna ask you a simple thing out of it. Okay, is that clear, guys?
Yes.
Okay, okay. Is that clear? If it's clear, let's move forward. Okay. Now, yeah, I would don't call them guys, don't call them as minors, okay? Don't call them as minors, please. They are extremely important, right? Right? They are very, 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 very important. Please don't come call them minors. Okay, okay. So okay, so okay, right, let's go. They're very important, right? And you're gonna get a lot of questions on these things, right? Even in the systematic diseases, right? The main questions are gonna be related to these things, right? So keep that thing in your mind. Okay, but they go hand in hand, right? If you just do the like the minor systems and if you say no, everything is covered, no, it's not gonna happen. That first you have to do they go hand in hand. Okay, now let's move forward, right? It's done. Now, type 3 is very simple. In type 3, what happens is that antigen is gonna so antigen that comes from outside the body is gonna bind with antibody, right? When they're going to bind to the antibodies, right, complement system is going to be activated, right? And then this complement system, these antigen antibody complexes are going to go throughout the body, right? And complement system attracts neutrophils. Okay, so basically Imagine, right? So what is gonna happen is that uh, this is very funny, right? But these are the problems of the bodies, right? These are the problems of our body. So the funny thing is that basically, just imagine there is a policeman, right? And there is a robber, right? So what happens is that the policeman is the antibody, the robber is the antigen, right? And the robber comes somewhere and the policeman says, "Oh, I'm gonna kill you," right? And robber says, "Please don't kill me," right? So and complex between them is formed. This is known as the immune complex, right? And when this immune complex is formed, the policeman is going to get activated and he's going to pull out his gun, right? This gun is known as the complement system or the neutrophils, right? Now, what happens is that the policeman is in a rage, right? He's going to fire every freaking where, right? He's going to fire everywhere, right? And now he's going to kill every single person except the antibody, except the antigen or the robber, right? So every single thing in the area is going to get destroyed. He's going to kill a lot of people, right? And there's going to be a lot of problems. So this is type 3 hypersensitivity reaction. In type 3 hypersensitivity reaction, antigen binds to the antibody, right? They're going to say, "Oh, I'm going to kill you," and then they're going to activate the complement, but complement is going to kill every single thing except what it was supposed to kill, right? So now the policeman and robber can go anywhere, right? So robber runs, policeman goes behind him, right? They go to a market, right? Or they go to a mall, or right, they go to a library. Similarly, these immune complexes can bind anywhere, right? So where does this thing? So how does this happen? So basically, this happens in SLE, right? In SLE, we are going to have antibodies, and the antibodies are going to be against antigens. These antibody antigen complexes are gonna go to a lot of places, right? So they're gonna go to the skin, you are gonna get lupus rash and skin, right? They're gonna go to, what do you say, the kidneys. The kidneys are gonna get destroyed, right? They're gonna go to heart, and the heart is gonna get destroyed, right? They're gonna go to the joints, they're gonna get do this positive in the joints, right? And then the joints are gonna be a painful, right? Okay, so this is how SLE works, right? So now reactive arthritis, polyarthritis, pneumonia, PSG, okay, so IgA vasculitis, these are in the musculoskeletal system, right? So this is what I'm telling you, right? You cannot do one thing with the other, right? If you don't know what is SLE, what's the point of type 3 hypersensitivity? And if you know SLE but you don't know type 3 hypersensitivity reaction, you are not taking step 2. You are taking step 1, right? In step 1, they are going to ask you about the physiology and the pathophys on every single thing. Okay. Is that clear? Right. So what is serum sickness reaction? So serum sickness reaction is a very important immune complex disease, right? So what happens in serum sickness reactions is that sometimes you have a foreign protein in the body. So for example, you take antibiotics, right? Or you take a vaccine. This is very common after vaccine, right? Yeah, so this is very common after vaccine. Oh, like, so funny thing after work regarding vaccine is that, do you guys know about phase 1 clinical trials?
No.
Yeah, so basically, yeah, so basically phase 1 clinical. So basically, whenever you are developing a thing, right? So we are gonna do it in biostats, right? So whenever you are developing something, right? Whenever you are developing a drug or whenever you are developing a vaccine, the first thing is that phase 0 clinical trial, right? There are different stages of clinical trials, right? So this is important. There a lot of questions. This is very high yield clinical trials, the phases of clinical trials. So phase 0 clinical trial is a trial, right, in which you test a thing on animals, right? You take a rat and you take a mouse and you test the thing on it, right? And when you test it on the mouse or rat, you see, does the mouse die, right? Does the mouse develop any kind of a complication? This is a phase 0 clinical trial. After that, you take the vaccine and you insert it into a human being, right? And you watch for side effects, right? You watch for any adverse events, and right, and you watch like if the person dies or not. This is phase 1 clinical trial, right? We are just gonna check the safety of the patient. Yes, exactly, right? So yeah, so I'm gonna go tomorrow, right? So yeah, so basically they are paying me $700 to get a vaccine of a phase 1 clinical trial, right? I don't know what's gonna happen to me, right? but they're gonna give me the vaccine, right? And then they're gonna take a blood work. Yeah, but I'm gonna get $700, right? Okay. Can you see the difference of rheumatic fever and rheumatoid arthritis? Oh, they are very different. Yeah, I can explain that. They're very different. Rheumatic fever and rheumatoid arthritis are like very, 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 very different, right? Okay. Okay, so basically, so from zero sickness, right? So yeah, I hope so. So the most likely thing that I'm definitely gonna get is a serum sickness reaction, right? Did what? Oh, yeah, yeah, they do that, but they are paying me very less. They should pay me like $5,000, $6,000 for it, but they're only paying me $700, right? If anyone is in New York and they want seven, yeah, if it's for step pneumo, right? It's for streptococcus pneumo, right? So it's for step pneumo. It's a step pneumo vaccine, a new vaccine, right? If anyone is in New York and they want $700 as well, I could give you the number. They could come. Okay. I could recommend them and they could get $700. Right. Okay. Right. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You don't need to buy you will. Okay. 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 Now, okay. So yeah. Yeah. So the purpose of doing it is like if I take 30 classes, I'm gonna get that money, right? If I'm gonna take 30 classes, I'm gonna get that money. And if I just get one shot, right, I'm gonna get that money. Right. So it's a very good deal for me. Okay. Okay, thank you. 6084. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so let's move forward, right? So the next thing that we're going to do is serum sickness. So serum sickness is that when you inject a vaccine or when you inject any foreign molecule, what is going to happen with that foreign molecule is that uh, uh, you're going to get antibodies against that foreign molecules, right? And then there's going to be antigen antibody deposition, right? And with that antigen antibody deposition, right, you're going to get complement activation, inflammation, right? So you are going to get a fever, right? You're gonna get hives on the body, right? You're gonna get uh, arthralgia, proteinuria after all of those things, right? So remember, it's most common with vaccines, right? And it's common with like with monoclonal antibodies, and it's common with what's the other thing? Drugs as well, especially after penicillins. It's very, very common after penicillin. Is that clear, guys? Right? So basically, you world or NBMEs or ECFMG, they're gonna say that a person comes to you and this person was treated for treatment of like an infection, right? And after the treatment of the infection, now so they're gonna say that a person came and the person was having a problem, right? And this patient was on the treatment for this infection, right? And after that, now this patient is having fever, arthralgia, proteinuria, right? So always keep a very low threshold that whenever a patient was treated for some problem, right? Uh, After that problem, if the patient is having fever, arthralgia, proteinuria, it could be serum and cyclone strike reaction. Okay, you can skip the arthur reaction; it's not important, right? Let's move to the last one, right? So the last one is type 4 hypersensitivity reaction, right? So last one is type 4 hypersensitivity reaction. Okay, so guys, let me tell you one other thing, right, regarding USMLEs, right? So this is the thing that I realized very late, right? But this is very important, right? If I'm teaching you, or if I'm doing anything with you, right? Or if you're standing by yourself as well, right? You might think in the start that USMLE is endless, right? There's a lot of things and you cannot cover that. But if you go really into the details, I don't think so. There are more than 3,000 or 4,000 concepts, maximum 3,000 concepts. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that, guys, so there are going to be 3,000, 4,000 concepts, right? So you, if you just decide to learn 10 different concepts each day, If you just learn 10 different concepts these days, we are having 120 days of marathon. You're gonna learn 12,000, 1,200, 1,500 very important, most important concepts by heart, right? And if you learn those 1,500, 1,600 concepts, right, everything is gonna be very, very easy for you, right? Let me show you one thing, right? Then we're gonna get back in. Yeah, it's possible, right? It's possible. It's possible. It's completely possible. And remember, you can't cram this amount of stuff, right? You cannot cram this amount of stuff, right? Right? I haven't crammed. For me, I never crammed it, right? You cannot cram it, right? So I just know things, right? I just read it, right? Try to get the concept, try to get an image of the patient, what is happening, right? So this is the problem with US health system. That I when I came here, I saw this problem, right? So I went first day into the hospital, right? So and when I went first day into the hospital, right, everything is on computer, right? You are seeing all the labs, every single thing that is on the computer, right? And no matter how much I try to see the patient's lab, if I see it 10 times, if I see it 10, 20 times, right? I have a very good memory, right? But I literally saw a patient labs and values for like 20 times, right? And after that, when I tried to present the patient, I could not remember any single thing about the patient, right? And I was like, why? What's happening, right? What's wrong? What is this sorcery, right? And then I decided upon one thing, right? It's impossible for a person to just read blank texts and remember any single thing, right? So what did I do is that I stepped out of the room. I just stepped out of the residence area. I went to the patient's cabin and I looked at the chart there. There was a real person that was standing in front of me, right? It wasn't a computer game. It wasn't a simulation, right? And then I could remember every single thing about that patient, right? So the same thing you have to do it here, right? These are not just lines. These are like real patients, right? These are real diseases. These are affecting real patients, right? When I did my step one, I thought of it this way, right? These are real diseases, right? I took an interest, right? So this is, God forbid this happens, but on every disease, every single disease, I just thought one thing, right? What if this disease happens to someone who is very close to me, right? Then you're gonna know every single thing about that disease, right? So just try to like learn it that way, right? Just try to learn it that way, right? So what if so for example, if something happens to you or someone close to you, right, you're going to know every single detail about that disease, right? How do you treat it, how do you do that, how do you do that, right? You associate name to things, right? So associate name to things, right? Associate pictures to things, right? These are not just numbers, these are real people. Okay. And this is very important, right? Okay, let's move forward. Type 4 hypersensitivity, right? We're not going to do type 4 right now. For type 4, we have to do T cells and CD4 cells. Okay, so we are going to do it later. Okay? When we do the T4s or CD4 cells, then we are going to do it. Okay, let's see what we can do else. Right, let's do the cytokines. What are cytokines? Anyone? Hmm?
The chemicals, the white blood cells communicate with each other, you know, by this.
Okay. Hmm? Okay. Anyone else? Any other thing that you need to add? Hmm. So basically, cytokines are proteins, right? And they are secreted by immune cells, right? So first of all, remember this thing. No, so let me tell you one thing. If you have friends, right, that are preparing for USMLE as well, right, go and ask them what is cytokines, right? They're not gonna know anything, right? They're just gonna know about this space. It's not important. The most important thing is what a cytokine.
As
Okay.
signaling proteins.
Yeah. So basically, they are proteins, right? And they are secreted by immune cells, right? And then they're not just secreted. They are secreted when you have any cellular injury, whenever you have ischemia, whenever you have infection, right? Then they are secreted. Okay. Now they act on different receptors, right? They act on receptors, right? And then there are different types of it. The types that we are going to focus right now is interleukins, right? Interleukins are the cytokines that are produced by white blood cells and they act on another white blood cells. Okay. Interleukins are the one that are produced by white blood cells and they act on the other white blood cells. This I cannot tell you how important this page is. Right? Very, 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 very important. Please keep this in mind. Interleukins are the one that are secreted by one and they act on the other one. Okay. Is that clear?
Can you please repeat this line?
Okay. So basically, interleukins are the cytokines, right? Interleukins are the proteins that are produced by white blood cells, right? By leukocytes. And what is their function? So they are secreted by one and they act on the other one. Okay. Is that
Okay,
clear?
thank you. Yes.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Okay. So now let's go into interleukins, right? So basically, there are different white blood cells, right? One is macrophage, the other is T cells, then we have Th1 cells, and there are Th2 cells, right? I'm gonna tell you about the macrophage is simple. Well, yeah, there are messengers. Okay. Macrophages are white blood cells, right? And the main function of these are their phagocytosis, right? And okay, other thing that they do is that they're very important in inflammation. They secrete interleukins, right? So first interleukin that macrophage secretes is interleukin one. Okay, so there is the mnemonic. Please keep this mnemonic in mind, right? So interleukin one causes fever, right? Hot tea bone steak. What does interleukin 2 do? Interleukin 2 causes growth of T cells. Okay, is that clear?
Yes.
Interleukin 3 is gonna cause the growth of bone marrow, right? So 2 causes the growth of T cells. 3 is gonna cause growth of bone marrow and it's gonna increase every single time. 4 is gonna increase IgE production. Okay. 5 is gonna increase the production of IgA and 6 is gonna increase the acute phase protein, right? Keep this in mind, right? We are going to do more detail of these tomorrow, right? But for one thing is that remember 4 is going to increase the production of Ig, right? And I want to link this concept here, right? Okay. So dupilumab works against interleukin 4. So now can you see how deep is the link of this thing? So how does dupilumab works? Anyone? Anyone? How does dupilumab work? Okay. Like, don't go into the class searching. Just tell me what's the most important thing of that. Anyone?
Antibodies like IgE.
Yeah. So okay. So first of all, it's gonna block the production of Ig. It's gonna act against IL-4, right? IgE will not be secreted. So what's gonna happen if Ig does not get secreted?
Mast cell will not be produced, right? It will not be
No.
primed.
No. So mast cells. Uh,
Antigen can
No. There will not be binding of
Yeah, so mast cells
IgE.
won't be degranulated. Okay.
Yes, mast cell will not be
Um.
degranulated, and then if it's inhibits secretion of IgE, which I believe IgE binds to mast cell, and then at the repeat exposure, it will have mast cell degranulation. All
Yeah.
those processes will not happen.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Fine. Let's start with interleukin one. First of all, the most important thing, interleukin one is produced by WBCs, right? It causes fever, right? Interleukin one is gonna cause fever. You're gonna ask again and again and again what causes fever? Interleukin one. Second thing is that it can increase the formation of chemokine. So what is chemokine? Chemokines are the molecules
Like the
that
natural killer
yeah,
cells. I'm sorry.
yeah. So chemokines are the molecules that attract white blood cells. Okay,
Mhm.
okay. Chemokines are gonna attract white blood cells. Okay, is that clear? Okay, two things that are clear. Again, interleukin 6 is gonna cause fever as well. So interleukin 1 and 6 causes fever. Again, fever. Now, if anytime fever comes to your mind, just think of interleukin 1 and 6. Okay. Now, TNF alpha, most important cytokine. Most important cytokine. Right. Why is it so important? Anyone?
Um, TNF
Yeah.
alpha, I believe. Okay.
Killers.
Yeah.
I think it protects the granuloma from breaking down. Protects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So,
let me tell you.
okay.
That is correct. Okay. So pneumonia crosses alpha has a lot of features, right? And the most important feature, it's gonna it's gonna activate the endothelium, right? So whenever there is any injury, there's any infection, tumor necrosis alpha is gonna be produced, right? And this activated tumor necrosis alpha, it's gonna cause activated endothelium. It's gonna get activated, it's gonna get vasodilated, right? And then there's gonna be shock, right? There's gonna be septic, there's gonna be shock, right? And there's gonna be vasodilation of arteries, right? No, there are a lot of different ways it can cause vasodilation. I'm gonna go into the detail of it tomorrow, right? So believe me, I could give like a 6-7 hour lecture on T1 necrosis alpha only, right? So only on T1 necrosis alpha I can give. So these are so important, right? These are so important, right? Okay. So this is the first thing. So basically, there are a lot of tumor necrosis, right? We are now just focusing on tumor necrosis alpha, right? So these are secreted by macrophages. The first thing it's gonna do is that uh, tumor necrosis alpha. The first thing that it does is that it's gonna activate the endothelium, right? And when endothelium is gonna activate, it's gonna cause vascular leak, right? So things are gonna leak from the vessels and they're gonna go outside, right? So this is how septic shock is gonna happen, right? Second thing is that it causes the granulomas to be maintained, right? So whenever a patient is having TB, the patient is gonna have granuloma, right? And granuloma is gonna protect the patient against TB. Okay, so this is very important. They ask it a lot, right? So the mainline treatment for Crohn disease is tumor necrosis alpha inhibitors, right? It's gonna be tumor necrosis alpha inhibitors. Okay, is that clear? Okay, okay. It's gonna be tumor necrosis alpha inhibitors, right? So they are gonna ask you, uh, they could say a patient was started on the treatment of Crohn's or any other disease, and they're not gonna say that we are gonna tumor necrosis alpha inhibitors. You have to imagine it, right? what is the patient at most risk of? Right? What is the patient at most risk of? Okay. So the patient is at most risk of what? The patient is at most risk of TB
Dissemination.
reactivation.
Dissemination.
Yeah,
Maybe.
TB reactivation. Okay.
Deactivation.
Hmm. Okay. So we're gonna keep it till here today, and we're gonna start from tomorrow. Okay. Tomorrow I'm gonna have a holiday, so it's gonna be 2 or 3 hour session. Okay.
Okay, Dr. Ram.
And we're gonna do as much as immune as possible. Okay, guys. So take care and bye bye.